Kabir will be speaking today with his talk about feeling excited. So Kabir, when you're ready to share your screen, please go ahead. I think you're on mute, Kabir.
Okay, better now?
Yes, can see your slides as well.
Okay, great. Right, so my name is Kabir and I work for Red Hat, and I'm really excited to be here today to share this topic of reframing presentation nerves as excitement. So if you know me, you'll know kind of saying stuff like I feel excited is a bit out of character, but there's a reason why I've said this at the beginning of this talk. Right, so we'll have a look at what presentation nerves are and why they are caused. Then we'll also see that telling yourself to calm down isn't really the best approach to go around this. There's other better ways. And we'll investigate a few of these. Oops. So at the London Java Community Aspiring Speakers Group, we often have interviews with experienced speakers, and they normally kind of sort of give their experiences about their experiences of speaking in public. So the one take home is that the nerves never really go away, and essentially this kind of to a new speaker sounds pretty daunting, like that's not good news. And they also say instead you should reframe your nerves as excitement, which sounds really good in theory, but how do you actually go around doing this? So before Christmas, I came across this book by Daniel McGinn called Psyched Up, and this goes into some details about the theory behind how to do this actually reframing of your nerves as excitement. So if you're preparing for a talk, you kind of practice it a few times, it goes really well. You feel quite good about the whole thing, and that's all great. But then on the day or some time in advance, you kind of end up panicking and feeling a bit like this guy. So you kind of feel like you're undoing all the good work you put in. It's quite frustrating, and you, sorry, you don't really know how to kind of snap out of this. So this is essentially the adrenaline kicking in, which is like a totally natural thing to happen. So it triggers your fight or flight response. So this kind of makes your reptile part of your brain take over from your rational part of your brain. So you don't kind of think as straight as you normally would. And this manifests itself in physical effects that kind of we associate with feeling nervous or anxious. So this includes things like dry mouth, shaking, maybe tunnel vision, etc., etc. So we've probably all been there. So when you feel like this, the most obvious approach is to kind of tell yourself to calm down. But research actually shows that this does more harm than good. So if you have like this kind of scale, then calm and anxious are totally opposite ends of the spectrum. So it's totally unrealistic to go from a state of high anxiety to feeling calm when you're still in this stressful situation. I had some analogy about trying to feel calm and going nervous if going to sleep, but that didn't really work out. So I'll skip that for going into the mess. So instead of aiming for feeling calm when you are excited, instead of aiming for feeling calm when you are anxious, you should instead aim for feeling excited, because they are much closer physical sensations and they kind of have a few things in common, like you probably have a quick heartbeat as well when you're excited as well as when you're anxious, and so on. Also, if you are really anxious, you're not really going to do really great talk. And likewise, if you're really calm, it's probably going to be quite boring and inspirational. So now let's look at some strategies, how we can actually do this reframing of nerves as excitement. And we'll also have a look at some ways to get used to performing while feeling this way, that it's not really the end of the world if you feel kind of slightly agitated. So the first thing is to basically show how the power of saying, I feel excited, actually just saying the words has an impact. So they did a research study where they took a huge group of people and had them sing a karaoke game, which gives you scores, something like SingStar. So they divided them up into 3 groups. The first group, they didn't do anything special, they just went and sang, and they scored okay, they scored 70%. Then they had a second group read out, I feel nervous, and they scored much worse just for having read this out. Then the final group had to read out, I feel excited, and they had a better score than both the other groups. And there's no reason to think that any of these people actually felt any different from each other overall on average. So it seems just saying these words to yourself before a presentation can actually have a big impact on how you do. Then there's an approach called centering, which is a bit like a meditation that they teach performing artists during their studies. And this is kind of a way to kind of collect yourself before going into stressful situation. So apparently with practice, you can kind of do this in about 10 seconds, but you need to kind of do this on a regular basis and not wait until just before your first stressful situation in a while. You have to kind of practice this regularly. Something which I haven't actually done myself. I try to remember, but it's maybe every 2 weeks or so I remember, aha, I should practice this. So it's an approach to calm down, which might seem to contradict what we said recently, that you shouldn't tell yourself to calm down. But the difference is that this is a structured approach. So you're just performing some kind of pre-rehearsed steps. The aim isn't really on how you feel or how you want to feel. You're just running through some motions. So this is opposite from blindly trying to calm down without having the tools to do so. So the book I mentioned, Psyched Up, has a section on how to center. It's quite short, 1 or 2 pages. So I'll try to summarize them here. You can also Google this, and there's loads of different approaches on the internet how to do this. They're all slightly different, but they also have a lot of things in common. So the first thing to do is kind of like look out into space and focus on an unimportant spot, say out loud what you intend to do. So for example, in this case, I want to give a presentation on reframing nerves as excitement. And it's important to say it out loud. Then you close your eyes, do some cycles of deep breathing. And while you continue breathing, you start doing some kind of relaxation from the top of your body and down for a few breathing cycles. And then when you're done, you kind of focus on your center when you kind of relaxed as much as you can. And your center is kind of a point between your belly button and your tailbone somewhere, like inside your belly. And this is kind of meant to give you some sense of grounding, but I don't think I've quite got there yet myself. And the thing I think personally is that while you're trying to breathe and relax, is not to kind of give you a hard time about if your breathing is shallower than you would like, or if you're not relaxing as much as you'd like. The main thing is kind of the motion or the act of following these steps. So when you're done, you kind of open your eyes and fling kind of negative energy stored up at the space in like the spot you focused on originally. Kind of state something like how you're going to achieve your goal. that you state in the beginning. Like, for example, I want to try to speak slowly and vary my voice somewhat. And then it's good to like finish off this with a I feel excited. That's my little tweak. So centering was good to kind of get yourself a bit calmer towards this state of excitement. Another approach that they teach performing artists is to practice like the performance, but having done some heavy exercise beforehand. So the heart is racing, they might be shaking, sweating, which are symptoms similar to feeling anxious. So I've not actually tried this myself, but the theory is that you kind of get used to performing under these conditions, having these sensations, and that they don't actually mean the end of the world. So you kind of get some familiarity with the whole feeling. Then the final thing the book recommends, or it doesn't really recommend, I mean more points out that it's useful for some people, is pre-performance routines. So this could be anything from listening to your favorite music playlist, shouting motivational stuff to yourself. It doesn't really matter what it is. The main thing is that it should be the same thing you do every time. And I think the key point is that this kind of distracts you from worrying, and you're just doing something to totally take your mind off this stuff that you're about to perform. And the book goes into some really weird examples, like some guy who's famous, I can't remember exactly who it is, has been chewing this one make of pen, like biting it to bits before his performance every time. This pen is now out of production, and he has some staff especially running around the world tracking down the supply of this pen for him before he goes on stage. So whatever works for you is not weird. So to finish off, the book I mentioned is called Psyched Up by Daniel McGinn. If you can get a free copy, then the first few chapters are really good. If you're feeling rich, then buy the whole thing. But I didn't really like the second half as much, the first 1 or 2 chapters. Telling yourself to calm down actually seems to do more harm than good. It's a totally opposite state, like calm and anxious. Try to tell us if you are excited instead, like we saw the karaoke game score thing, actually shows that just saying you feel excited has some impact on your performance. And centering is a system to reduce stress, which can bring it down somewhat from feeling anxious to feeling excited. And if you have any questions after this, then my contact details are here. So thank you.
Thank you, Kabir. I find this really fascinating, especially the centering idea, because it feels like it's something you could use anywhere in your life when you feel that you've got negative energy or you're worried about something, and not just public speaking.
Yeah, one thing I actually forgot to say on the slide when I was going through the steps of centering is that if this sounds like a bit new age or too hippie for your liking, then actually kind of special forces use this before running in and taking out terrorists and stuff like this as well. So
yeah, I love it. I mean, that's definitely more stressful than, than at one of these events. But no, it's great. I was wondering, I know you said you haven't practiced much centering as you wanted, but do you have a strategy you're using? So like before you logged on, did you tell yourself anything? So anything
I did, yeah, but I'd sort of hoped to have time to do one more round just before speaking, which I didn't, so I felt a bit shaky in the beginning.
No, I think it was great. So thank you so much. Has anyone else got any questions? Feel free to unmute or put them in the chat, or like Kabir said, you can ask him directly afterwards. But if there aren't any more questions, we'll move on to Anirban and Kabir. If you want to put your contact details in the chat again.
Yeah, sure.
The slide's gone now. Anirban, are you ready to share your screen?
Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks, Kabir.
Yeah. So
okay. Whenever you're ready, I'll mute and let you get started.
Yes, I'm ready now. Okay, may I start? Hello.
Yeah, I can see your slides ready when you are.
Okay, I believe I am unmuted right now, right? Yeah. Yes, today actually I'm going to discuss about Kubernetes operator. So after Kabir's very fascinating and interesting topic, it is core technical topic. So I'm just trying to make it as simple as possible. And I'll in this discussion I'll explain my real world experience, what I have faced in my last project, and I want how I have implemented Kubernetes operator and why I have implemented it. And I have found some of the very amazing benefits of using Kubernetes operator, so that I'm just going to use. So I believe everyone knows about Kubernetes. It is widely used and most stable software to maintain and manage the containerized application. So Kubernetes by default provide lots of functionalities, lots of components as well to make your application completely containerized and manage it. But still, as a human beings, we need more. And Kubernetes operator is a way to extend Kubernetes as you like. You can define your own operator, own components, own custom resource definition that I'm just going to discuss, and you can use it. So it has some benefits, some very important benefits, so that I'm just going to discuss today. Okay. Yes. So in this talk, I'll just explain to create a Kubernetes operator, very simple one, Helm-based, because the other ways of creating a Kubernetes operator would be a bit difficult. So, but I'll mainly touch base those important points. One is what is Kubernetes operator, that I'll explain with an example. Next, how can DevOps use it to ship a product in a stable, repeatable, and auditable way? So that three words I have copied from some Red Hat tutorial, because I found those three words are very much suitable in using Kubernetes operator. And how does it facilitate moving the administration surface into Kubernetes API? This is also pretty important. So for that only, we are going to create the Kubernetes operator. And framework and libraries which are readily available nowadays to streamline writing an operator. You quickly write an operator. It's maybe sometimes you need no need to write any code at all, but you can create your own custom resource definition. So ample of tutorials available on the net. So two of them are very useful. I found the next one, which is actually with Hazelcast. It's really good. So you can just look at it and practice by yourself. Okay. So before explaining what is Kubernetes operator, I'm trying to explain a simple deployment, that what we do in our day-to-day work. So today's world, any microservice deployment, we deploy a microservice as a containerized application in Kubernetes ecosystem. So what generally we have to do? So ultimately, when you deploy a containerized application to Kubernetes, it will create pods. But pods alone does not fulfill your purpose in terms of end-to-end connectivity with your application to the microservices what you are going to deploy. So in addition to pod, we have to create some other components. One of them is service. So service is actually it is actually a hypothetical component, I would say, because it is not a physical component. It just assign ports to the pod. So and you can access the port through service, and you don't need to worry about the port IP address or a specific port, because port are not permanent. It sometimes it just creates, it is created and it is died out as well. So but service makes sure that you, whenever you are requesting to connect to a particular port, it will connect to underlying port which are available right now. So it will just make sure that that you can access a port. You no need to know the exact IP address of the port anytime. But service alone does not help you to access the services or the microservices from outside, because in a default mode, services are created in a cluster IP mode. So the services are only accessible inside cluster. Anyway, you can make it node port, but this is not a common practice. For the security purpose, we are not exposing service directly to all nodes. What we'll do, instead, service is being created as a cluster IP. It is only accessible inside the cluster, but we create ingress, and the ingress actually a component where you can define different rules to access the services. You can define the path. You can implement security in top of that. So ultimately, when you are trying to access a path of a particular website, so ingress is responsible to redirect your request to a particular service. In turn, service will redirect the request, or it will forward the request to a pod. So that way we can access. So in a simplistic term, imagine that I am going to deploy a customer microservice. So at minimum, those components needs to be created, and those components are created separately. So not only that, so to make a application, means a microservice runnable and accessible, sometimes we need to create secrets. Secrets are the places where we can store the confidential information as a key value pair. And sometimes we need to implement the connectivity, the TLS connectivity, the secured connectivity between the pods. And in those cases, we need to provision the certificate. So all those things are the administrative works which are needed to deploy a service into Kubernetes. That means Kubernetes has provided you all the components, but we need to do some administrative work to make everything combined and connected so that the overall application will work and perform as we want it. So those steps are the administrative steps. So, okay, so after creation of the services, after your team might have a technical knowledge to create all those components, but still there is a runbook required where we need to maintain all those necessary administrative activities to be performed first, and then we can deploy the application and the application will be available. So that's activities are maintained manually by the human operator in most of the project. So we generally maintain a runbook where we maintain, okay, we need to create service account, we need to create a deployment, we need to create ingresses and we need to provision the certificates. So all those requirements are maintained in a runbook, and administrator need to create all those things manually, and then only the application will be runnable. So here there is a way to do that in Kubernetes is using Helm. So through Helm, we can use templates, different templates, and the templates we can declaratively maintain all those component definition inside those templates, like deployment.yml, keep the deployment related things. For example, the service related things, we can keep it service.yml. But still, those are maintained individually. That means what is happening, since it is human dependent, so when we are deploying something in a particular environment, the same thing can be deployed in a different way to a different environment, because since it is maintained by human operator, so he or she can forget to implement any steps, or he can or she can do it in a different way. So we are not promising a repeatable and standard way of deployment. So it completely depends on the human operation, and Helm chart can help to package the application, but we cannot version it. Like, so instead of doing that one, if we can create a component which can take care everything of the deployment, then it would be very much helpful for the deployment purpose, for the maintainability purpose, and for the auditing purpose as well. And in that regards, I'm just going to explain what is Kubernetes operator and how we can use it. Check that. Here in the template, we have defined a particular resource, which is the deployment resource. So it's pretty common resource in Kubernetes. But this deployment resource is actually inbuilt resource shipped with Kubernetes. So it is a Kubernetes inbuilt resource, standard resource. But if we want to create, maybe I worked in a banking project, a fintech project. If we want to create a banking resource which can take care of everything, doing deployment, maintaining ingress, we only specify the different requirements on the specification section of the component, and it will do the work for us. So everything it will take care of us. So we can try to create a component which is actually a custom component. This component does not exist in Kubernetes. So this is actually the Kubernetes operator coming into the picture. So there are lots of text. I'll give a pause here so that the audience can read this one. So yes, so this is actually the Kubernetes operator. What we are aiming to do here, we are aiming to create a component which is a core banking component which does not exist as a standard Kubernetes resource in Kubernetes ecosystem. So you want to create it, a core banking component, and in the core banking component, in the spec section, we want to mention all those requirements which is relevant to our project. For example, we can provide the number of replicas here. Okay, we will enable the TLS here or not. What would be the ingress path for this component? So this kind of information we can provide it as a spec and use the Kubernetes command to exactly just run and create those components inside Kubernetes as we have done or as we do for all other standard components. So this particular definition I liked most, so I have taken it from Hazelcast. Kubernetes operator is an application that watches a custom Kubernetes resource. So we have defined why the custom Kubernetes resource is required. Okay. And this particular custom Kubernetes resource we have created and put it into Kubernetes, but it won't work because Kubernetes does not know anything about it, right? So what we have to do, so the operator is an application that watches a custom Kubernetes resource and performs some operation upon its changes. So we need to make the operator running, or to make the operator applicable to the Kubernetes ecosystem, we have to write some custom logic so that it will be working as we expected. So in that case, we need the Kubernetes operator to do that one. So Kubernetes operator help to achieve that. It has three components. One is the custom resource that I have already mentioned. This is the custom resource we are trying to achieve. A watcher in Kubernetes, most of the things are controller, like controller watches for a specific resource, it check the status and try to run it or try to make the desired state as the expected state. For example, if in a spec we mentioned 2 replicas, then the watcher will check that whether there are already 2 replicas are there or not. If not, they will create another one. If it is 1, then they will create another one. So exactly similar to that, the watcher performs the operation and we need to do the implementation logic. So we have to implement the logic as well, how we can achieve those custom operations. Okay, if you check that there are multiple Kubernetes operator are readily available. For example, etcd cluster operator, which makes sure to create the backup of etcd cluster, take the snapshot and restore it. RBAC manager operator, one is very important, which is HPA, horizontal ports auto scaling. Kubernetes operator, you can use it. It is a custom resource definition it has, and whenever you will install it, you can create a port as per requirement. It can auto scale based on the specification. And the cert manager are heavily used in nowadays to automatically provision and create certificates. So you will get those details. All those already ready-made operators are available in this particular operator hub. Okay. Next, then whatever I have discussed. Now actually I am discussing in terms of our banking project. What operator we have developed? We have created a banking operator. So we have created a banking custom resource So as part of operator creation, the operator will be created, a custom resource will be created. So banking operator will watch for any changes in the banking custom resource and get those changes and adjust the state in the calling the Kubernetes API. Just look at it, custom resource like this. It is not a standard Kubernetes resource. Okay. Now, whenever this particular operation will be performed, it's pretty important as well. Banking operator is actually calling the Kubernetes API to perform the desired operation. So banking operator needs to be authenticated in Kubernetes API. So there are some role-based authentication configuration also that need to be implemented. And the operator SDK will automatically do it for us. So we no need to do anything from our end. So, and again, banking operator, whenever we can try to create the operator, there are multiple ways we can create the operator, and the most useful way to, or most easiest way to create the operator by using operator SDK. There are 3 types of operator SDK currently available: Helm, Ansible, and Go. And today's demo, actually, I'll just explain in terms of Helm 1, because Helm 1 is pretty easy. Go 1 has a huge flexibility, but it's a bit complex. Like we need to write code. We need to write the logic completely using the Go programming language. So the comparison, very high level comparison are Helm declarative, very simple, limited to the features available in Helm only. So the features which are already available in Helm, you can combine it together and create your own custom resource. This is very quick to do that. If you have already a Helm project available, you no need to write any code. You straightforward create the operator out of it. Ansible declarative, simple, but it's powerful. You can write any logic. And the most powerful tool is the Go language, Go SDK. It's imperative and complex, but completely flexible. You can write anything you want. You can completely develop your own Kubernetes operator inside Kubernetes only and make it flexible and extendable. Okay, now I'll just mention the steps to create the Kubernetes operator. It's pretty simple. Whenever you have your chart, maybe I am just explaining in terms of the Helm. So in our project, the Helm chart were available already. So we have a Helm chart, and the Helm chart templates contain the deployment, HPA, ingress, service account, everything. So we just create a operator folder and go to the operator folder, and after installing, and installation is also pretty easy. On Mac, you can just execute a command like brew install operator SDK, then it will install the operator SDK for you. So you just install and operator SDK init plugin equal to Helm. Then what it will generate? It will generate the skeleton structure of operator for you. I'm just going to show you quickly, shortly. And then after creation of that, you need to create the actual operator, the API. So again, you will execute the command operator SDK create API. Now it's pretty important. We are mentioning a group. You just check that in a Kubernetes resource definition, we have a API and a group over there. So I have mentioned the group is core banking and the version is V1. In Kubernetes concept, we just start with V1 alpha 1, V1 beta 1 like that, but I have used it as V1. And whenever you have mentioned the group, and if you don't mention about the website or the URL, then it will automatically taken my.domain. And here we are using a existing chart, which is the banking service chart. Then it will create the operator for us. Just look at, so whenever you just execute the steps, you will find out the Docker file is created for us. Okay, and all the projects file created for us. I'm not explaining everything. There are lots of ample of documentation available, but the most important part is that the RBAC one, role binding, leader election, role binding. So everything's are there already. So everything will be created based on your Kubernetes cluster where you are trying to run it. Based on that, it will create everything for you. And the whole definition will be created, and most importantly, in a default section, you will create a custom file, custom operator, custom resource definition will be created for you. So the most importantly, three things will be created. Docker file will be created, RBAC rules generated in config RBAC role.yml, and watcher file will be also generated. Watcher file, you can change the watcher file to make it customized. So after that creation, now you can Dockerize, because now your operator got created. So you just Dockerize it, Docker build it, because Docker file has also been created by the operator logic operator. So, and you can push that particular Docker image, the operator, to your Docker hub. Next, we are trying to explain the custom resource definition. Just look at it. Whenever I have created the operator, the kind is banking service, because I have created the banking service as the kind, and I have given core banking as the group. So the API version will be created using the core banking, and after that my.domain will be appended. It is by default. If you specify the domain URL, then it would be automatically appended over there. So the resource definition has been created. It includes everything. It takes the values into the specification section so that you can specify anything over here and create a custom resource definition whose name is banking service. And next, you can do a make install. Whenever you will do a make install, the next step would be it will install it, and you want to deploy it into your Kubernetes cluster. So this particular whole operations will be done in your Kubernetes cluster. Just look at it. I have not executed any of the command. I have only executed this command, but this command in turns execute all those commands, like it will create kubectl, apply a bang operator. Then the bang operator will be created. At first, one namespace will be created. Then the domain will be created. Then the role will be created, and ultimately bang operator controller manager will be created. So whenever it is created, now your Kubernetes cluster is okay to accept any kind of custom, not any kind of, but banking service kind of custom resource definition and work on it. So next step, what we have done, we have just used kubectl -f, and the particular custom definition, what it is created, we have executed it. And whenever we executed it, just look at the services, banking service sample has been created, which in turn creates all the services, deployment, replica sets, so everything. So we no need to do anything for ourselves. So everything will be created for us. So if I quickly show you, I have some minutes, yes. If I quickly show how we have created that, for example, this is actually our template, our actually Kubernetes cluster. So if I try to look at like all the services I have created, that banking service sample has been created. Okay, so it is a banking service component. So if you try to get the banking service component, for example, I am just trying to get kubectl get banking service, just like we did kubectl get pods. So now the banking service is available as a component. So if I do it, so it will show you there are two banking service components are available. Even I can edit the banking service component directly. So I can edit it, and instead of one replica, it is now currently two replica running in parallel. So I can make it 3 replicas. So I can make it 3. Okay. For the simplicity purpose, I am just doing a very simple changes. So the sample file has been updated already. So now if I again look at the service, get all core banking, just check that the 3 service got created. So it's completely within our hand, and we are doing in a kubectl Kubernetes way to maintain the configuration completely. Okay. So again, I am going to the output section. So the output will be look like this. Now I am coming to the end actually. So the summary section and the key takeaways, what I found are very useful. 3 most useful benefits. is Kubernetes operator help us to extend the default Kubernetes functionalities? Yes, we can extend it. We can create our custom operators, whatever we like. Yeah, but it has limitation. So always using Helm and Ansible, you cannot create the operator anything you like. Maybe sometimes you need to use Go programming language, and using Go programming language, you can define any kind of logic to create the Kubernetes operator. Point number 2, DevOps can embrace Kubernetes operator to accomplish administrative tasks as Kubernetes API. Exactly. So initially, we had to do all the administrative work before actually deploying the application. For example, creation of the secrets and maintaining it, and creation of the how many replicas will be created, that we need to define in the Helm chart. So there are 2 separate places where we have to change. But now currently, after creation of the component, you can use it exactly similar to other standard Kubernetes component. And finally, operator SDK helps to develop Kubernetes operator effortlessly and sometimes without writing any code. So without writing any code, we can do that one. In a Helm chart, if maximum project deployed to Kubernetes environment, we use the Helm chart. So in a Helm chart, if it is readily available, so we can in a single line of two line of commands, we can create a component and use it. So that's it from my end. And there are some link available. The first one is pretty useful. Just have a look at it. And Hazelka's team, they have provided step-by-step guides to create the Kubernetes operator from scratch. Not only using the Helm operator, it is they have used the Ansible as well as Go to create the operator you like. And there are multiple other help, other documentation and help available. The most important one is also the SDK operation framework. So that particular site, it is an official site of operator framework where you can get lots of tutorial to practice on. And that's it. Thank you very much, all.
Thank you. Thanks for that. I thought that was really well structured, and I love it when there's a load of references at the end for people so they can go off afterwards and find out more. Does anyone have any questions at all about the talk? You can unmute your mic or feel free to put a question in the chat, whatever you prefer.
So my LinkedIn ID and everything provided. So if anyone asks me any questions in future, so they can just reach out to me.
Yeah, definitely. If you haven't got a question now, feel free to reach out afterwards. And also we'll be putting the recording on YouTube. It'll probably be up there next week. So if you want to watch it again and you think of a question then feel free to reach out to either of our speakers at that point. You should also have all received an email just asking for feedback. Both of our speakers today are part of our aspiring speakers group, and I think they'll probably agree that feedback is incredibly helpful and encouraging, and it just helps them as they continue on their speaking journey. So if you do have a couple of minutes, if you could fill in that form, that would be great, and I'll pass the feedback on. So if anyone doesn't have any questions, then I think we can finish a bit earlier than planned. So I just want to say thank you so much to both of you for both talks. Yeah, David's just said there in the chat, like a great mix of technical and non-technical. So yeah, I had a really great afternoon. And if anyone here would like to speak at a future event, or Kabir, Anirban, you would like to speak again, you know where I am, just send me and we'll sort it out. Okay. So thanks everyone. I'll get the video up soon and we'll see you all at another event soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dom.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.